Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today on our webinar. Today, I'm joined by colleagues from the Metropolitan Police and the NPCC to share some detail of a PowerApp that's been developed by frontline practitioners to help improve the daily work and the way they use information. All our forces share the same blueprint on the Microsoft 365 technology, which has been deployed across policing over the last couple of years. It now means that we can now share innovations like the one you'll see today across all forces, confident that bar a little bit of local adaptation, the solution can be replicated easily and work securely on the police platform. And one of the key roles of the PDS is to host these apps in what we call basically the solutions catalog, which is a police app store, and that is available online to colleagues in policing. It's a secure platform only available to you via logging in with a police email address. You do have to subscribe to it, and we'll post the link into the chat so that you can join it. It'll be on the screen there, but there is the solution, the enabling center, and in there you'll find the solutions catalog. And there's lots of solutions, apps, ways of working that have been developed by policing and are available to you to be able to deploy in your own force, including the one we're talking about today, and that'll be going up on this site in the next few weeks. And we'll let you know when. So if you click on that link, you can subscribe and get an update. So we will come back to that a little bit later on. So let's get into today's session properly and bring forward what we're going to be talking about today. Today I'm going to bring in Andy Harding, who is the very posh job title, the NPCC Strategic Manager for Less Lethal Weapons, and he's responsible for this area of business. Firstly, it's worth addressing that at least one media outlet who's promoted this webinar unfortunately used an image that isn't actually a taser. It's actually an illegal image and therefore not associated with UK policing at all. We've reached out to them, of course, to explain this and challenge the accuracy. But Andy, I know the subject of taser use by policing is a very emotive issue and under immense scrutiny. How does the work that we're talking about today fit into the wider work across the police service?
David, thank you very much for inviting me along to speak today. Now, I mean, the legitimacy and transparency of taser use in the UK is of the utmost importance to policing. We want and we need our communities to have confidence in what we do and how we do it. Now, we all know that, you know, policing isn't an exact science, and our officers are dealing with extremely dangerous and violent people on a daily basis, and therefore taser is a really good option for officers to use. It's what we call a distance control measure, meaning officers can deal with violence and threats of violence at distance, whereas in the past, these situations would have been dealt with up close and personal, resulting in injuries to both officers and subjects that they're dealing with. So we know that taser is an extremely useful device, but it has a bad reputation and is probably the most controversial weapon used in policing. So it makes sense that we do everything in our power to demonstrate that we take this seriously and we scrutinise each and every use and firing of the device to ensure the legitimacy of it in its operational work. And this is where the Met have developed a fabulous piece of work which enables supervisors and instructors to actually assess and review all the uses very soon after they have happened. And this leads to officers who have used the device to understand where they have used it, where they've used it well, where perhaps there's room for some improvement, and ultimately allows us early intervention into any contentious deployment so we can deal with it there and then. And I think that by doing that, and by you know, using the Met's PowerApp that they've produced, is going to provide a different level for police forces across the UK to operate on, and that is ultimately going to be good for our communities with regards to the legitimacy and transparency of what we try and do.
And Andy, there's a lot of myths around the use of taser, and in fact in our own communications we used a black coloured taser which is used by specialist teams in UK policing, but our officers and staff, and importantly the public, are far more likely to see a yellow coloured taser carried by police officers. So why in the vast majority of cases is the taser actually bright yellow?
I mean, it's yellow. There are a number of reasons why it's yellow. I mean, the predominant one for us is that if you were to actually bring a taser out in most environments, I think everybody knows what it is, because, you know, we've got films, media, and PR to thank for that. It's something that is instantly recognisable the world over. And you know, it cannot be understated that when that is seen and when it is presented in a violent incident, for example, most of the time, in fact 90% of the time, the taser doesn't even have to be used or fired. It can actually just you know, the mere presence of it is enough to bring a violent or a potentially violent situation to an immediate halt without any use of force being used at all.
Thanks, Andy. We'll come back to you a little bit later, but now I'm going to introduce Graham from the Met Police, who actually developed the PowerApp we're going to be talking about today. And whilst he was doing this whilst working as a Taser training officer, and he's described the app as being a little bit niche, but I would certainly see this as something all forces could use, as we've heard from Andy. So, Graham, thank you for joining us. And could you start off by first explaining what the problem you were trying to solve was with this application?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you can hear me. My comms aren't great, but I'll talk you through it. So essentially the app was designed whilst I was working for the Taser Uplift program with the Metropolitan Police. It essentially is a tool that records lots of taser use, I suppose you say, in the Metropolitan Police. It's just taser activations, and it's used by the group of instructors in the unit who basically scrutinise all of the taser activations within. So that was why the tool was made.
Andy, sorry, Graham, your audio is a little bit broken, so could you just pop?
Which utilises PowerApps, which the Met have used for a couple of years now.
Yeah. You've developed this app and it's used for reviewing the discharges consistently across the Taser training team. Hopefully we've still got Graham there. So we met earlier this week, and there are a number of ways that forces could use this app as part of the wider process, and there's potential to connect the data from lots of different points, etc. But could you perhaps demonstrate some from the starting point in the Met of how the form's developed?
So essentially this is a home screen for the app. It's configurable from a back-end SharePoint list. So every force, you know, can have their own set of options. So you can have various flags, statuses. So it's all configurable by the back end. Once you've selected the force, so there's only two there, UPS one and generic, you can log in. When you log into the app, a lot of data is retrieved. So login details for the user, it's all very secure. You can only log into the app given access to it. And once you land on the home screen, you've got a few different options you can go and have a look. So if we look to create a new review, so this would essentially be an instructor getting an activation through via a use of force form. They would dig deeper into it. They would have into the activation, have a look into it, see if there's any issues or if it's particularly good work. Just to view it really, just to know what's happening. So we can create a review here. This is all test data, by the way, so there's no live data. It's all dump data. You can fill out this subject age, summary, various flags. So we can put various flags which can be configured individually for each force if they wanted to.
So that's basically putting some structure about the unstructured data that's in the summary by adding the flags.
You can pick an address and a location where the activation is taking place. So this one, select the embankment, gardens. And you have the ability to link it to existing incidents. And you can refer it to someone as well. So You know, if you decided you needed to refer it to the supervisor or someone else, you could refer it to them, pick email, and when the review's created, they would get an email through and an instance being referred to them. Submit it.
Brilliant. So it's quite easy, and you can imagine lots of forces could do different ways of creating that starting point. It could be based if they've already got digital use of force forms. It could be a trigger. There's lots of ways around this as we go forward. How do you as a user see your own data in there? How do you review what you've been looking at? Because that's a really important part of this. Okay.
Right, so that was the, hope you can hear me now. So that was my reviews. So you can see your own reviews by going into there. You can filter it, there's options, and you can click into a review. So, and you can look at the specifics, and you can update it. So, you know, if you wanted to write some comments, you know, stick in a comment here. New comment, it's all logged and saved, and the record's updated. It's stored on a SharePoint list, so revision history is all stored. So secure, you can see this history. Obviously, Seawood, the test account here has been quite active. So that would be how you see your own reviews.
So how about if you wanted to review the data a bit more and say you're at a more supervisor or strategic level, you wanted to look at the data about it and filter it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could go into the main database here and review everyone's review. So every review that's been submitted is in this database. You can filter it quite intrusively. So you can just filter by status and then filter by flags. All the flags that you set in the back end. No re-energizing ones. Activations running away, for example. And then you could essentially generate a map if you wanted to. So you filter by date range as well. So you could generate a map, which will create an HTML file. Got one actually to show.
It's typical the demo gods are playing up today. Well, there you go. So
this would be a typical map generated by the app. It shows specific locations of the reviews. So you could really put together a picture of where situations are happening, to see if you know, looking for any patterns essentially. So
and there's some graphs, isn't there, as well?
Graphs, and you can also export the data to a CSV file. So the data could be viewed in Excel if users are comfortable. This is an example of the graphs. So again, this is stuff that could be filtered more in Excel once you've exported it. But the app will generate some basic graphs for you. So you really can have a little look at data inside the app rather than continually export to Excel. Gives you that option. But it's quite flexible. So because the back end is a SharePoint list, you're able to connect it to Power BI. If your force, you know, went down that route, I don't think the Met are, but I believe some are looking at. So that's the data side of it.
Thanks, Graham. And you know what we've seen there is because it's on the 365 platform in the secure environment, the data is managed under the normal data retention policies, but the fact it's a list means you can never really get rid of the data. You can only add to it. The full audit capabilities there, and then being able to point things like Power BI or just export it to a CSV file means that that data can be used in a number of ways by the force in terms of how it's scrutinizing, learning and adapting to what's going on, moving them forward. Before I go to any questions, and if you do have any questions, if you can pop them into the chat, we'll come to that. But Andy, if we can come back to you, from a national point of view, are other forces trying to develop this and solve the same problem, and how can you see that this sort of data-driven approach can be used to improve the way that Taser is deployed across policing?
Well, I mean, first of all, David, I just want to reiterate the fact that the Met have developed this, and other forces are developing other work streams to deal with these sorts of things, and I think that in itself demonstrates the desire for policing across the UK to get this absolutely right and spot on. You know, we cannot underestimate, you know, the fact that we are out there, we're there to do a job. And we've got to do that job to the best of our abilities. And if we can learn as we go, and we can actually intervene at a very early stage if something isn't going right, then that's got to be a really good thing for us in policing. And also it demonstrates to people outside of policing that we are absolutely genuinely determined to get this right and to get it right with our communities as well. I just got to say, you know, we have the National Taser Stakeholder Advisory Group, who are an oversight group who, you know, feed into me and my team. And, you know, they are absolutely fantastic for us because they're the people that have that oversight. They give us the ideas, you know, should you be looking at this, you be looking at that, and obviously if we do get things wrong, then they're there quickly to point it out, but also there to help us prevent going down these lines. And I know that obviously this is something that they will be very interested in when they get to know how it works. Just in addition to that, we've got 2 seminars that are happening on the 17th and the 23rd of June, hosted at New Scotland Yard. Obviously the Met development team and instructors are going to be there. I will be there as well. And it's designed really to advertise this. Now, like I say, if forces are doing stuff on their own, that's fair enough, and I accept that and I understand that. However, it would be really good if they haven't quite got so far with their endeavours, that they have a look at this one and at least try and, you know, give it a try and see whether this is something that they could move into their operations like the Met have as well. And what that ultimately does is, you know, it actually creates a single environment across the UK where we can all start to share a bit more, look at things a bit more detail, and if there are trends that are coming along that we, you know, are seeing develop in perhaps the north of the country, in the south of the country, we can get onto it straight away and start looking at how we can avoid it or how we can promote it if it's a good thing. So these, you know, it's really important that we do have that connectivity across the UK, and that's why I do recommend that forces do at least have a look at this, and if they can take it on, that they do.
And we'll come to a couple of questions in a second on this, but, you know, there's one comment in here from Len who talks about the force has already got a use of force PowerApp that they've developed. There's access by the phone and contains a few fields for Taser use. You know, the potential is that they could have that list create triggers into this list and vice versa. So, you know, it's however the force we can share, and perhaps that use of force PowerApp is something we should be sharing in the solutions catalog as well, so we get again that consistency and perhaps be able to design those joints between the use of force PowerApp and this review app as well, so we can get that more seamless data, more triggers, and a more seamless throw for this. I'm going to come to a question for Graham, if I could. How long did it take you to develop this approach?
So the app took around, I would say, 2 months to develop the initial application, but it's been consistently developed since then. So the beauty of PowerApps means that, you know, it's fairly easy to add various features to it. And as PowerApps develops itself, so PowerApps platform is often updated. It enables you to add more features to an app, so it's very flexible. But the initial development, I would say, probably took me 2 months, and that was part-time as well, so in amongst my normal day job. So it's fairly quick, and that is the beauty of PowerApps. It's designed to be low code. The code is all there, really. It's just putting it together.
And of course, you did this as part of the system developer approach that the Met has got, which means, you know, we do want the front line developing these, and the tools are now there. Another question was about, could it be integrated into something like niche? And I think really the issue is yes, but niche is the issue there, where it's what it integrates to, because the data's held in a secure place on our lists. It's then the challenge is, how do you get it into other platforms? And that tends to be more of an issue on the platform than it is on the team site, isn't it? There was a question about Power BI, and we did mention that. Absolutely, if your force is using Power BI, then this is a list, so it can be pointed at it, and we can do more on that. Let's see if there's any other questions coming in. Comment here from Simon Pountain. Andy, nice to see you again. Is there an opportunity to gather this information nationally as well? Is there a possibility that this app could be promoted and a preferred one? Simon is the senior responsible officer for our police application store, which is going to be the replacement to the solutions catalogue in probably a fair few months' time, to be fair yet. But Andy, your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually writing a response which I will publish as well. But lovely to hear from Simon again. Simon was my boss. Simon was also in charge of the Taser rollout in the Met back in, I don't even know when it was now, probably about 2008, 9, 10, something along those lines. So he's got some really good background experience with regards to how emotive Taser is. And his question is absolutely spot on. I would love this to be something that all forces take up. It's early days. It is something that is an aspiration of ours. And if we do achieve 100% take up, then I think we would have, you know, we can quite rightly congratulate ourselves on that one. But he's absolutely right. I would like this to happen. I'd like it to be 100% rolled out to all forces, and it's something that we are going to be working on in the background to do that and to promote it with forces across the UK.
And this is obviously an example of the data strategy, part of the DDAT strategy. You know, if we all have consistent ways of collecting data, we might use the same app, or we might just use the consistent approach of data collection. All that gives us capability that we've been struggling with across policing for some time. And that's what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days at the Police Digital Summit. I really want to thank Graham and Andy for joining us today. We've got Martin Lewis in the background, not that one, another one. I can say that as David Bailey, can't I? He's in the background helping us out with the chat as well, and we'll be taking part in those seminars. And I think it's also a reminder to join the Enabling Centre, because one of the key points on the Enabling Centre is that you also join what's called the Force Collaboration Team platform as well. And if you are thinking of developing an app, it's really important that you perhaps share it into that group, so all people who are doing similar sort of work across all forces can share that knowledge, and we can perhaps start bringing people together who are doing similar work and perhaps save time. You know, Graham spent 2 months part-time developing this. That's 2 months potential saving across another 42 forces. So what can we do along more of those lines? So please do join our group if you're able to, and we can take more value and, you know, save a bit of duplication, work together, which is exactly in line with the DDAT strategy that we're all working towards, about empowering our officers and staff to do more to address harm, but we'll underpin that with some really strong data. And that reminds me that we have a Power Automation Lists workshop in a couple of weeks, where you can get into the detail of some of the tools that support this sort of development. Remember, this app you've seen today operates on SharePoint lists, so we have a workshop in a couple of weeks' time where Microsoft are going to be talking about how you can now develop lists as part of your planner and tasking coordination process, adaptive cards to trigger alerts. So please, the link is in the chat, it'll be on the video. We'd like you to come along, and we are increasing the more and more visitors to our PDS YouTube channel, where you can see all our previous webinars. There's about 70 on there at the moment going back, and actually one of our webinars is quite well trending now in relation to use of sway, and that's beyond the police market as well. So we are back next week, where Mike and I will be back, and we're going to be looking at some of the learning resources that are freely, and I mean no cost, available to support colleagues in forces using 365, so we can get more colleagues getting more value out of the tools that we've got access to. Thanks for joining us today. We will post some more links in here in the chat. If you've got any questions, do reach out through the PDS contact centre. We can connect you with the right people. And if you do go across to the solutions catalogue, you can hit the button and be alerted when the PowerApp is available. And if you do need any more information, please get in touch. Thanks a lot for joining us. Apologies for the slight problems with the audio today. It's been a day of gremlins, but we've managed to get through there. We'll edit them out on the recording, and I'll edit this bit out of the recording, so it's there available to you as part of our ongoing commitment to keep these going. So thanks a lot. See you again soon.